Good morning, guys. Happy Good Friday. I'm going to read today from Rechenka's Eggs by Patricia Polacco. She's our author and our illustrator. And, as you know, today's we call it Good Friday. Why is it good? Jesus was dying on the cross, but we know that 3 days later he rose from the dead, and on Easter we celebrate his resurrection. We know he died on the cross for our sins, so it's an awesome time to celebrate. And in this book, there is a bit of a celebration of that as well. And just so you know, my husband and I, we have a 3-day rule. When something really bad happens, we think of Jesus' death on the cross and we wait 3 days. And usually things have changed since then. So it's kind of a way to kind of persevere. So I hope you, I don't know, you can use that anytime you want. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to read Rechenka's Eggs by Patricia Polacco. Babushka lived alone in a dacha, a little house in the country, but she was known far and wide for the fine eggs that she lovingly painted. Her eggs were so beautiful that she always won first prize at the Easter festival in Moskva. Each day, Babushka would take the shell of an egg from her basket and paint it in wonderful designs, using the shapes of stars and flowers, triangles and circles. Through the long, cold winter, Babushka painted. Then one day, after a snowstorm, Babushka went outside. She could still hear the faint sound of falling snow. It was a sound like soft rain. Herds of caribou came to feed at Babushka's because the grasses they usually ate were covered with snow. A miracle, she whispered as she fed some. These wild things have found their way to me. Just then, a flock of noisy geese honked loudly overhead. As they glided over the snow, one of them faltered and fell from the sky. Babushka went to where the goose lay crumpled in the snow. A hunter did this, Babushka grumbled. She carefully picked up the goose and took it back to her little house. There she fed the little goose from her own table and put the goose in her best basket lined with the warmest quilt from her own bed. I shall name you a good name, one that we both can like. Eh, my little friend? She said as she patted the goose's head. How do you like Rechenka? Yes? Then Rechenka it shall be. With Babushka's care, Rechenka grew stronger as each day passed. To repay her kindness, Rechenka laid an egg for breakfast every morning. As Rechenka got better, she waddled around the little house, exploring every nook, cupboard, and corner. One day she jumped on top of Babushka's work table, overturning the jars of bright-colored paint that she used to color the eggs. Nyet! Babushka screamed as she chased the goose with a broom. No! The frightened goose flapped her wings to get away and knocked over the basket of eggs that Babushka had so lovingly painted. The eggs crashed onto the floor and shattered into millions of pieces. They were both very sad. There was no reason now for Babushka to go to the festival. The next morning, Babushka slowly got out of bed and trundled over to Rechenka's basket to get her morning egg. But when she reached into the middle of the quilt, she picked out the most brilliantly colored egg that she'd ever seen. A miracle, Babushka whispered. A miracle. She made small holes at both ends of the egg and blew the yolk and white into a dish to cook and eat later for breakfast. Then she held the egg up to the morning light and marveled at its beauty. After that, every morning for 12 mornings, there was another egg, each more beautiful than the one laid the day before. Soon, Babushka had enough eggs to take to the festival at Moskva. How wonderful, she thought. A miracle has replaced the eggs that were broken. Spring is here, my little friend, Babushka said to Rechenka the morning of the festival. Soon now you'll be flying off to the north with your flock. She bustled to the hearth fire and brewed some of her most favored tea. The two shared a saucer of tea with kulik, a sweet Easter bread. She covered each piece with pashka, a spread of cheese and butter and raisins. They savored each bit together. You see, okay? One for you, one for me, Babushka chanted. Da, da, my little friend. I shall sorely miss you, but you are a wild thing, and a miracle sent you to me. It would not be right to ask you to stay here with me forever. When Babushka left her little house, she took one last look at Rechenka sitting on the doorstep. She waved, then took determined steps for Moskva with the basket of her precious eggs. She crossed Lebetov Valley where the caribou mothers were walking their newborn calves. A miracle, she thought. New lives. A miracle. She crossed the bridge over the Moskva River, and soon she could see the onion domes of old Moskva. The festival was bright and exciting. There were goat carts selling kulik, processions, dancers, jugglers, and laughing children playing and running. Babushka showed her old friends the eggs. Her eggs are the most beautiful in all Russia, they thought. Look at them, the elders said. They almost glow, as if the paint is part of the shell itself. The judges picked Babushka's eggs as the most beautiful. Babushka was so happy. She beamed as she looked at the first prize, a feather bed quilt. As Babushka made her way homeward, a honking flock of geese flew overhead. Babushka gave them a long, lingering look. She wondered if Rechenka was one of them. When Babushka arrived at her home that evening, Rechenka was gone. Alone, she put the new quilt on her little bed. She brewed a cup of tea, ate the last of the kulik and pashka, got into bed with her favorite book of poems, and drifted off to sleep. She hadn't noticed Rechenka's basket. But that night, Babushka was awakened from a sound sleep by an ever so small sound. It was coming from Rechenka's basket. She hobbled closer and saw a glorious egg. But this one was different from all the others. It quivered and moved. It made tiny muffled sounds. The egg jumped, bumped, rolled, and pitched in the basket. Then there was a crack, and Babushka could see the very special gift that Rechenka had left for her. All a miracle, Babushka said, and this little goose remained with Babushka always. Oh, I hope you like that book. So, if we got to have class today, I would talk a little bit about a couple things. So definitely about Easter, which we mentioned, but I also wanted to talk about where this book takes place. Okay? This book takes place in Russia. And we know this because we have some Russian words. And we also know that Moskva is how the Russians would say Moscow, which is the capital of Russia. Now, a few fun facts about Russia in case you don't know. Russia is really, really big. It's on the map and it borders two continents, Europe and Asia. It's so big, it's the biggest country in Europe and it's the biggest country in Asia. It's Europe part and it's Asian part. Okay? And the dividing line is usually the Ural Mountains, U-R-A-L, the Ural Mountains, and there are 11 time zones in Russia. So it's really, really big. And like we said, Moscow is the capital of Russia. And one of the things it's known for are these kind of onion dome churches. This is a style that's known as Russian architecture, and they call them onion domes. And they look a little bit like candles, which maybe that's what they're supposed to symbolize, okay? So this should be St. Basil's Cathedral, which is a symbol of the country, and it's right in the middle of Moscow in Red Square, okay? So I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out this right here. And maybe you know what that is, but that's called a triptych, Triptych, triptych. And it's a 3-paneled picture, and it's famous in ancient art, and you would fold these in typically and be able to 3 panels and open them up and close them up. And you can see these at the Philadelphia Art Museum, triptychs just like this, okay? What else? I wanted to talk about the caribou too. So caribou are what we really would call reindeer. They're just a little different than what we would call reindeer, but they are in the reindeer family and share the same family, and they're migrators. So when they come to get food from her, there's really very little food. This part of Russia would be considered kind of like a tundra, very frozen. But then you notice that when she's walking to Moscow, those same caribou are going with their babies. Caribou can travel up to 600 miles. So they migrate, which means they move based on the seasons. So they're going to go to their new grazing grounds in the summer, okay? So they could walk almost 600 miles, which is crazy. Can't even imagine, right? I wanted to mention, we talked about similes, and here's a simile right here. It was a sound like soft rain, okay? Simile, remember, is a comparison that uses like or as, and authors use it to give us a picture. We know what soft rain feels like, right? It was a little faint sound of falling snow like soft rain, okay? And one more thing. I mean, when you think about what the book is about and what it means, I love that Babushka saw miracles in creation, in eggs, and then she had some real miracles, didn't she? But new life, definitely a miracle, and it's also about kindness being returned. So she saves Rechenka, and Rechenka then gives her eggs, and then she doesn't get that mad it's upsetting when her eggs get ruined, but then Rechenka returns that again with these miracle eggs, okay? So I thought you'd like that. And then I also just wanted to talk really about the basic, this is an ancient art in Russia that goes way back, for painting eggs in this very ornate manner, and they still do this now, and they hand paint eggs, and they call it pisanki. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And later, Fabergé would make eggs, gold, very ornate eggs, as gifts to the Tsar, the Emperor of Russia. So, and those are pretty famous. So we would look at some of those too if we had a chance, but you can look them up. And as you maybe decorate eggs this Easter, I don't know if that's part of your family tradition, but you can think about that and just really reflect on the best miracle of all, which is Jesus dying for our sins, and then being raised from the dead. So I hope you enjoy this book though, and I hope you have a blessed Easter, and I love you guys and miss you.